Hey guys, loud truck, always a loud truck. Hey guys, welcome to my May wrap-up. May was a strange reading month for me. I made my TBR at the end of April, excited to read all the books, and then when May came, I was not interested in all the books. I think partly because halfway through the month, very unexpectedly, our previous foster kids came back to us, which if you can hear noises in the background, the 4-year-old is attempting to play video games by himself, so there's some excitement. So I read a decent amount of books, quite a few small books for various things, partly just mood reading, whatever I wanted to do. So let's get into all the clips and tell you, yep, there's a kid, telling you about my reading month. It's my first update. Today is May 6th, and I've only finished one book, but I did finish it a few days ago, and I'm in the middle of a few, so it feels like I'm kind of behind, but I'm really not caring this month. I'm just reading at the pace that I want, reading what I want, and so far that means one book done, and that is Daddy Longlegs by Jean Webster. This book is a classic that I had never heard of until fairly recently, and it was written in 1912 or published in 1912, and it does not read like it. I had to remind myself as I was going through that it was a classic. There was a few times where I'm like, oh, like you can tell because they don't have, you know, like modern technology. Every now and then you could tell, but for the most part the writing was so easy to read. So this is about a girl who, her name is actually like Jerusha, I think. She goes by Judy, and at least partway through she goes by Judy. She has grown up in an orphanage and is very poor, obviously, but at the beginning of the book there is like a trustee of the orphanage that has decided that he wants to send her to college because I think he read like a story that she had written, so she's pretty good at writing. And so he sends her to college. The only catch is that she has to write him a letter each month, but she doesn't know anything about him. She caught a glimpse of him as he was like leaving the orphanage prior to knowing that he was going to be helping her. And all that she knows from that is he has long legs, like he's really tall, hence why the book is called Daddy Longlegs. And I was seriously laughing out loud so many times that my daughter is now reading the book. She's about halfway through, and it's just making me chuckle. She starts out pretty naive. She's grown up in an orphanage, so the first, I think, 11 pages are like a little bit of a background, what's going on, and then the rest of the book is told in letters, and she draws pictures every now and then, and it made me feel good because I feel like her drawing level is like pretty close to mine. Mine's a little worse than that, but she's got some great pictures in here. She is constantly asking Daddy Longlegs to tell her a little bit about himself, and he pretty much never replies. Yes, this is what she thinks. She's wondering if he's bald because she needs to know how to finish this portrait of him. So this is what he looks like, but she needs to know if she needs to draw hair or not. And so the story is just her time, 4 years at school, and she sends him hilarious updates of the little things that are going on. And I thoroughly enjoyed this. There is apparently a book 2, like this is a bit of a duology. I think it's called The Enemy. I have no idea if it's gonna be any good, but I want to read that because I thoroughly enjoyed this. Highly recommend it if you want to check off a classic, but you want the classic to not like feel like a classic, or you like books with humor or books written in letters. Please read this one. I want to talk about this with people, and if you have read it, let me know, because how did I not really know about this book for so long? I finished 2 books and I feel like I'm getting sick. My body aches and every little like bump feels so much worse. So my energy level is gonna be pretty low right now, but this first book I really enjoyed. I just don't have the energy to like create a ton of enthusiasm about it, but know that I really liked it. I did talk about it in my reading ebooks for only a week video because I actually read like 3/4 of it physically and then the rest via ebook. And this is The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp, and this is a Christian fiction book that the faith element is so upfront, and it makes me realize how rare that is in Christian fiction. And I'm not against people, like, I don't think I would really necessarily, a non-Christian would pick this book up or really enjoy it. So I think it is nice sometimes when the underlying faith is a little bit more subtle, but I really enjoyed this one. So our main character, Mrs. Kipp, she is going into hospice care. She's got cancer everywhere. She knows she's gonna die very shortly, and she lives her life like that. And when I started reading this book, I was thinking, oh, like, I want to be that kind of old lady. And then I've been second guessing myself and thinking, why am I not that person now? And like fear and like worry of judgment and all sorts of different things, but this is who I should be now. So this is the story of Mrs. Kipp, and then another character, Aiden, is a journalist or something, some kind of writer of some sort. This made me realize I do not want to work in the environment that she works in, but she's been tasked to write Mrs. Kipp's obituary, and Mrs. Kipp only allows her to ask 3 questions every time that Aiden comes up with an extraordinary death for her. So Aiden has to make up all these different deaths, and that's where the name comes in. For the longest time I'm like, where is this book? Like, what's this title doing? And yeah, so I tabbed a bunch at the beginning, and then I need to go through the ebook and tab the rest, because there was a lot of things throughout the rest of it that I enjoyed as well. I do highly recommend this. I feel like I'm not selling it very well because I'm just low energy. But if you go to my ebooks, reading ebooks video, I think I talked about it there. Like, I don't even remember anymore. If you want more enthusiasm, I'm pretty sure it was in that video. Oh yeah, and that was like a, you know, try not to cry kind of book, or sometimes you just do cry. So then I needed something light and fluffy, and I was only still in the middle of actually only reading ebooks, and I like me a physical book. So I picked up Pride and Premeditation. This was recommended a while ago to me. So this is a like Regency era cozy mystery where you have like the Pride and Prejudice characters, but they're solving a mystery and, you know, involved in all that. And it was pretty okay. It was probably what I was in the mood for at the time, because it was light and not heart-wrenching, and it never made me feel like I was going to cry. But I just didn't love it, or like, this is my problem with those kinds of books, that where you're making a mystery book, like a murder mystery, where you've got a female detective or like type character that's set in the past. So often authors feel like they need to be so feminism heavy, instead of just letting our characters show their strength throughout their works, like what they're doing. I feel like it's always just preached at you, and it drives me nuts. I've read it done well in some books, but this was more on the Enola Holmes level, and it got to the point where it was irritating to me, unfortunately, just like Enola. So it was okay. I'm not going to continue the series. I don't care that much. But I feel out of breath and I haven't even been doing anything, so I'm gonna go sit for a bit. So I totally did get sick, and now it's been a few days, at least half a week, and I finished a bunch of books because I did a lot of reading while I was sick, but now I'm not going to remember all the details. So the first book that I finished, I think, was Dangerous Beauty. This is a Christian, I would say like suspense type book. Right at the beginning of the book, our main character is running away from some men. We get the idea that she's being trafficked. She gets to a gas station, and this guy that is there finds these 2 guys that trafficked her, beats them up, and then proposes to her. And she says yes. And so the story is kind of about that, about her, about things. I appreciate when Christian fiction tackles such hard topics like sex trafficking, but I definitely struggle with a lot of the predictability-ness of these kinds of books. I mean, I knew where this was going to go in many ways, and it did. So yeah, I had this as a NetGalley arc, so I feel like I didn't lose much, but it is what it is. I shared about the book a bit in my, just a little bit, in my reading ebooks for a week, so you can check that out. And then the other ebook that I read, the sun doesn't know if it's coming or going, was Cold Pursuit by Nancy Mell. She is one of the better Christian suspense writers. She writes, I think she must have some kind of background in being a behavioral analyst or something like that, because that's what most of her characters are. She brings in a lot of extra elements, even to do with like psychology, than a lot of Christian suspense writers. Still my favorite is her like Mind Games trilogy. Nothing has lived up to that. This one was decent. So we have our two main characters. They were behavioral analysts, I think, and both kind of got hurt, and so now they're starting up a private detective agency type thing, and still have some like PTSD, I guess I'll say, from their job previously. And the only thing I didn't like about this one is that it does one of the things that I don't like in suspense books, and I don't know if this is just a Christian suspense thing, but we're in the head of like the bad guy, actually two of them, and I just kind of skim over those chapters because I don't want to know, like I want it to be a bit more of a mystery. Definitely like the mystery aspect of things, and when we can get inside the bad guy's head and hear his thoughts, then I feel like the mystery's kind of gone. So I finished those two. Then I finished Kilmeny of the Orchard. I read it in this book, this library edition. It's very old. There's actually no spine. It's just tape. It's two pieces of hardcover book taped together, but the font is easier to read. I do also have this one, which is just very hard to read. All the words are very packed together, so I chose to read it in the library one. So this was for L.M. Montgomery, and this is one of my least favorite L.M. Montgomery books, I would say, and I don't really have anything that I can say that I really dislike about it. It just doesn't live up to her other ones. We're following a guy named Eric, well, I don't remember his last name, Walters maybe, and I think she does better writing within characters, so I think that's one of my issues. And he actually has quite a bit of money, but he goes to teach for a bit because his friend was teaching and then got sick, and then personally requested that he take over the school while he's trying to heal. And so he does, and then he is walking in an orchard one day and he finds this girl named Kilmeny, young lady, who pretty much no one really knows about or ever sees. She's dumb, like she can't speak, even though she can make noise and she can hear just fine. And so it's the story of him falling in love with her and all that. It was alright. It's just not like living up to her other books. Then I did also finish A Northern Light. I picked this one up because I had got the YA card in my TBR picking. I think I was supposed to read this in April though, and I started it in April but only finished it in May. And this book reminded me so much of Where the Crawdads Sing. I thought about not finishing it, but by that point I was so far. I think I ended up giving it 2 stars. It's about a girl named Maddie, and we have 3 different timelines. So at the beginning of the book, she gets these letters, this lady that is staying at this hotel she's working at passes her a bundle of letters and tells her to burn them. And she doesn't, and then that lady ends up dead later that day. And then we kind of go back in time and we're like learning about how she's smart and wants to be a writer and all this. And I really didn't like this book. There's a lot of, I think I just don't like books set in this time period with like ignorant backwoods people. And I don't mean ignorant as in, like, I mean naive. I don't know. This just reminded me so much of Where the Crawdads Sing, and I didn't even finish or like that book at all. Then yesterday I listened to this book, Among the Hidden. So I had pulled the card read only via audiobook for a day, so that's what I did. And I tried a few books out, but this is the one I ended up reading. This is the first book in the Shadow Children sequence, not series, sequence, by Margaret Peterson Haddix. So this is in a world where you cannot have a 3rd child. I guess there's been like overpopulation, they're worried about food, so they've passed a law that you can only have 2 kids. And of course our main character Luke is a 3rd child, and so he just has to stay in his house all day. But one day he's kind of like peeping out and he sees another face in a house where there shouldn't be a child. And so this was the first book in I think a 6-book series. I do plan on continuing this. They're all like the same length too, so they're quick reads. Curious to see where this goes. So there's a bunch of the books that I read in the last week or so, and we'll see when I update next. I have 2 more books to review. The first one is The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter, and this is one of those books that I don't know how much to say. It is like science fiction where we follow a girl named Mary Jekyll, and her father has died, I think like 14 years before. Her mother has just died at the beginning of this book, and she has found out that her mother has been paying for the care of someone named Hyde at this place, and so she's going to go try to see who this is. The book is always a cat, always a cat. The book is very much science fiction, but it also has like this mystery element, so I don't want to say too much. Maybe don't try to get my camera. Thank you. But I did enjoy the story. There is quite a few references to like women of the night, and there's a few things in here. There's one character that's kind of like on the crude side. You can probably hear the toddler's voice coming through. And the cat. This is just what life is right now. Stop it. So I don't think everybody would like this. I don't know how long I'm going to actually keep the copy for. One thing that I did like was that there are characters that like cut through the story. He's seriously trying to eat my tripod. They cut through the story and like insert things that they think was actually happening, or what's right or what's wrong about the story. And I like it when our narrator talks to us usually. So I really did like the writing style of this, but this will not be for everyone, for sure. I'm putting that out there. Then yesterday I started a 7 books in 7 days vlog for Patreon, and I read Winnie's Great War. Thought I would start things off easily. This is the story of Winnie the Pooh, written by Harry Colburn's great granddaughter. So he's the guy that bought Winnie the Pooh, took her to England, or Winnie she was, and then A.A. Milne and his son Christopher Robin saw Winnie, named her Winnie the Pooh, wrote a story, etc. So I think I'm giving this 3 stars. It was okay. The writing style was not my favorite. There was like a lot of like animals talking to animals, and I'm really not like a talking animals kind of person. But the actual storyline is interesting. The fact that she has snippets of his, like Harry's journal, and in the back there's even pictures. And like there's his actual journal from 1914, and how he wrote that on train all day, bought bear, $20. And yeah, it's an interesting story. Not the best done, but I'm gonna get my son to read this. I think he might enjoy it. So I have 3 books to wrap up here. The first one is Agatha Christie's Towards Zero. I don't know why I picked this one up. I just randomly felt like it. I'm doing a 7 books in 7 days vlog, and this was one of the shorter ones on the shelf. Still over 200 pages though. So I picked it up, and this is gonna be one of my favorite Agatha Christie. I have a whole video sharing my favorite Agatha Christie, but this one's one of them as well now. So this one is like, what is the connection among a failed suicide attempt, a wrongful accusation of theft against a schoolgirl, and the romantic life of a famous tennis player? And she takes all those 3 things and connects them somehow. So the first half of this book, I would say, feels like a gothic story where there's like vibes going, something's going to happen and you don't know what, but you know something. And that was a great element. I really like that gothic feel to books. And then the second half is like a little bit more typical Agatha Christie solving a mystery. Really enjoyed it. Oh, this is one of her personal favorites. My favorites are pretty much all Agatha Christie's favorites. The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, Murder on the Orient Express, The Moving Finger, And Then There Were None, Towards Zero, Crooked House, A Murder is Announced, Endless Night I didn't love in the moment, but I loved it after, Ordeal by Innocence. I don't know if I've read that one. I don't see it on my shelf, so I probably did read it, but I don't remember what that one was about. And then the Miss Marple Complete Short Stories. I haven't read all of those. It's definitely, I enjoy her favorites. So definitely recommend that one. Then I got out The Sense of Wonder by Rachel Carson from the library. This is like I think it's like a nature essay with pictures in it. And I don't know what I was expecting. It's really about helping, how adults can help children to fall in love with nature, which sounds really good, but the book fell flat for me. It was interesting. There were certain parts where it's like, you don't have to know a lot about nature in order to help kids fall in love with it. You just have to kind of go in with a sense of wonder yourself. And I like that. But I felt like it was missing a lot. This was published post, I think, well, it was published after she died, but I don't even think she was done writing it. So I don't know if someone finished it or it didn't feel like it ended abruptly. I don't really know how that worked. Yeah, so I read that. And then I read book 2 in the Shadow Children sequence, Among the Imposters. And so in this book we continue to follow Luke, who is a third child in a world where there's not supposed to be third children. You're supposed to max out at 2. So he's been hiding for like the last 12 years, I think. And yeah, we continue to follow him. I'm assuming we will continue throughout the series. There's like 6 or 7 books or something. It's an alright series. Still not like loving it, but I've read 2 books this month in the series, so I mean, it's not that bad, right? So that is 3 more books that I recently read. I've read, what is this now, 4 books that I need to update on. I haven't been doing a very good job updating after I read them. We're gonna go in reverse order. The one that I finished this morning we'll start with, and then we'll go into the ones that I finished a while ago. Okay, so the one I finished this morning is Emily of Deep Valley. I just felt like reading this book this month. You'll notice that I've kind of fallen off of the TBR wagon, and I'm okay with that. I'm just not in the mood to read the books on my TBR right now, so I'm reading the ones that I am. This one is a classic. So it was written in 1950, but the book is set in 1912. So Maud Hart Lovelace, she's the author of the Betsy Tacy series, which I actually haven't even read. Probably should have read it before this, but I think it's okay that I didn't. The Betsy Tacy series is kind of based off of her and one of her friends, I think, growing up or something. And then Emily of Deep Valley is based off of a different friend of hers. So in this one, Emily graduates in 1912. We start on the last day of high school, and so she's going through graduation and all her friends are going off to college, but she has tried to make the selfless decision to stay home. She lives alone with her grandfather. Her grandmother and her parents have passed away, and he's getting older. She's decided to stay home and take care of him, try to keep his life easy, and it hurts her because she wants to go to college, and it's hard for her to hear about her friends getting really excited about all this stuff about college, and she's stuck at home. And it's interesting, the first part of the book, I wasn't loving it. She's really in love with this guy who's in love with himself, and he's just bad news, and she knows that like he has all these character flaws, and she's okay with it, or like she still loves him. And yeah, but it gets better. There's a lot that happens in this book, but I feel like the first part is what I've said. It's like the first half, and so I don't want to give spoilers to like the rest of it, but I did end up enjoying it. To me, she's not, based off of this book, this is not like Ellen Montgomery level. I thought maybe it would be. It's not quite, but it was a fun read still. It was just exactly what I needed. So I'm thankful that I allowed myself to mood read and read this book. So there was that one. Then the other 3 are 3 that I read during my 7 books in 7 days. The last one that I read, no, this isn't the right order, it doesn't matter, was A Single Shard. This is a middle grade book set in the 12th century in Korea, and we have a main character named Tree Ear. He breaks a piece of pottery. He's a homeless boy. He lives under this bridge with this older man that took him in, and he likes to watch this one potter. He's very good at making pottery in his village, and one day he breaks something that the man has made, and so he says he'll work for him for 9 days to pay off the pottery, the cost of the value of the thing that he broke. And the first chapter of this, I wasn't sold. I was like, I don't know, just wasn't really understanding what was going on. And then by chapter 2, I was hooked, and I flew through this, and this was a 5-star book for me. I really enjoyed it. Another one I read was The Haunted Bookshop. So this is the second book in the duology. The first one is Parnassus on Wheels, and then we've got The Haunted Bookshop. This is by Christopher Morley, and the first one, like Parnassus, was written in 1917. I'm assuming The Haunted Bookshop was written shortly after. And so in The Haunted Bookshop, we follow this couple that owns a bookshop in Brooklyn, and I don't know, we just kind of hang out with them a bit, but there's also things going on. So on the back here it says it's part mystery, part spy thriller, and part romance, but it's also like just a lot of bookish things as well. And I love that he named the bookshop The Haunted Bookshop because it says, "That's why I call this place The Haunted Bookshop. Haunted by the ghosts of the books I haven't read. Poor uneasy spirits, they walk and walk around me. There's only one way to lay the ghost of a book, and that is to read it. And I don't know, I like that idea of like books haunting you, because that's kind of how I feel with my TBR. Those books, they do like follow me around. So I enjoyed it. I still enjoyed Parnassus a bit more, but I think I still gave this 5 stars. Definitely want to own a copy of these books. And then lastly, this is the last one that I read during my 7 books in 7 days. The Cottage Fairy Companion. So the Cottage Fairy is a channel here on YouTube, and I enjoy watching it like from time to time. And my library had her book, which is just a collection of little essays and recipes and different things, just about like slow, gentle living. And I do feel like there was some of the stuff that I just had to be like, okay, that's not really applicable, whatever. But then there was a lot of stuff that just felt like it resonated, and I overall enjoyed this. I think I gave it 4 stars. So hopefully I will check in with another book or 2 before the end of the month. And then on to my last couple of reads from the month. I have 3 that I finished and 3 that I've started that I'm gonna put off for a bit. I have a tag on Goodreads that's like started but may eventually finish, and I've put those there because I want to read them at some point. I'm not in the mood right now. So first of all, I think I technically actually read this in April, but I'm putting this on because I didn't put it on my April reading wrap up. It is Lone Wolf by my daughter. So this is a short but hard-hitting but humorous book about foster care, and I'm so proud of her. And you guys have been so supportive and have purchased copies, and she is just like over the moon, you guys, over the moon. You have made a 12-year-old's dreams come true, and I'm so proud of her. You know, if she can write this well at 12, you know, like even biased mothers' thoughts aside, I can't wait to see what she can produce in a couple of years. And I'm sorry for all the background noise. There's like a loud truck, there's kids playing. It's life. So I read this, 5 stars, very excited. And like I almost cried in this book. She made me tear up. So technically read this in April, putting it on this wrap up because I want to keep talking about it and sharing about it because I'm so proud of her. Then I read 2 more books in the Shadow Children sequence, but I got confused because I actually started book 4 thinking it was book 3. So I got halfway through this before I realized it's book 4. So then I stopped halfway through and then went on to this one. And now I'm actually seeing it does say here, book 3 and book 4. I don't know why I didn't notice that. I was going off of the back and they have the list of the books, but they don't have the list including the current book. So it confused me. But I read Among the Betrayed. In this one we follow a different main character, and I only give this one 3 stars. So it wasn't, that's why I didn't notice that I was missing an entire book when I started this one, because in some ways it doesn't really apply. It doesn't have a lot of impact on book 4. So I give this one 3 stars. It was interesting, but not as good as the rest of the series. And then Among the Barons, this one I gave 4 stars. I've just been enjoying the series. I can't believe I read 4 of the books in the series this month. I never do that. And I have 2 out of the remaining 3 books out from the library right now. So I might just finish this entire series in June. That would be outrageous for me to read a 7-book series in 2 months. That's like what I used to do as a teenager. So it's not like a 5-star series, but it's fun. I'm enjoying it. So there's that. And then those are all my read books. And then I have 3 that I'm just putting off to the side for now. I know Emily Fox, she has a like pile of shame of books that she started and for some reason has not completed. And I think these kind of might be those kind of books where I'll come back to them eventually. Maybe I'll like actually make a plan to finish them at some point, like intentionally. But the first one here is Red Rising. You guys, I started this one in April, and oh, there's a bookmark there, but I don't think I got that far, did I? I might be on page 32. Not very far at all. So I don't know much. Not really in the mood for this. This is fantasy of some sort. I don't really even know what's going on yet. So it's not that anything was wrong with it. I just wasn't in the mood. So I'll have to make a separate pile on my shelf for that. Then I also started in May Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. This was my Read Your Bookshelf Challenge book for this month, for May, and I got, okay, interrupted. That's what I got, interrupted. I'm on page 320. I'll be back. So this was my book for like over 500 pages. I want to read some over 500 page books this year, and I was really enjoying it. Like if you can see the tabs here, there was like a lot of like fun, okay, God, focus, Englishy kind of references to like tea and fireplaces and reading good books. And I love that kind of thing. I'm not like huge into fantasy, which this also is. It's about England where there's magicians, but they haven't really been doing magic. And there's a couple that are kind of coming out of the woodworks, out of the whatever, that can do magic and kind of like changing things. I don't know. Is it worth reading 700 more pages though? I think I just have to be in the right mood. And at the beginning of May, I was in that mood. And then I got out of that mood. So I do think I'll finish it. I do think, like, I enjoyed it. It was like a slow read, very outside of my element. I was enjoying it. I'm just not in the mood right now. And then the third one, I don't know what to do about this one. It has to go back to the library, so that's why I'm officially putting it down for now. But it's Katherine of Aragon. This is The True Queen, book 1 in the Tudor Queen series, King Henry VIII's first wife. I think I got to page like maybe 150. I don't know. I have a little tab thing here at page 100. I feel like I got farther than that, but it looks like I took out my bookmark. I don't know. I want to read the series. I went and bought, like, I have 4 of the 6 books that I own already. I want to like it, but I don't know. It wasn't really working for me. And I'm not sure if it's the writing. I'm not sure if I'd skip this one, if I come back to it later, or just start on it. Book 2? I'm not sure. If you guys have read this series, I want to hear some of your thoughts because I want to read it. I want to like it. But it was putting me in a slump. And this is another one that I started in April. One of my goals for the year is to read 7 books that are 500 pages plus, and I thought these would both like check that box, but now I haven't finished either of them. So that's a bit of a problem. So there's what I finished for the month and what I DNF'd. So I'll show you the final stack of my read books. So I read all of, oh wait, there's one more. Oh, there's one more. Okay. I also read The 4-Hour School Day by somebody. I was reading it over on my homeschool membership, and this was like our book club book. We're doing 1 book per season, and I enjoyed it. I think I gave it 4 stars. It's very much how we homeschool already. Certain things I felt inspired by, certain things I felt like, oh, I'm already doing that. Some things I was like, well, that's not applicable. The whole last chapter was all about like, here's why you should homeschool. And I'm like, we should have covered that at the beginning because, well, first of all, I'm already homeschooling, so it's not applicable. But I don't think a person would read an entire book and then be like, I still don't know if I'm going to homeschool. But I did enjoy it overall. So there's that one. And then there was a couple that I brought back from to the library. And then I also read these. So it's like definitely a short book kind of month overall. But that's apparently what I was in the mood for. So I would love, ooh, it's falling. I would love to hear what you read in May. Did you have some favorites? Let me know in the comments. And like always, I will have links to all the books that I read this month in the description. Thanks for being here, guys.